if you're anything like me and you have all these gremlins competing for your attention, it's a call for mindfulness and this paying attention, which is something that many of us have lost in this chaotic and overexcited world. So let's practice some mindfulness. Perhaps one of the biggest buzzwords in mental health and spirituality is mindfulness. And there's been a lot of really interesting scientific studies for years about mindfulness-based stress reduction and just these self-help buzzwords. Oh, just be mindful. And it's frustrating to me hearing all this because it really makes it seem much more technical than what it really is. And on the other hand, this idea of being mindful, it's like this little toxic positivity. Oh, just be mindful. Because it's very simple, but it's very difficult. In other words, you don't need to take a class in mindfulness. It doesn't have to be like this 6-week education, but it is a discipline, so it's very difficult. So people who are just beginning in meditation will find it very, very difficult to sit and sit still. And that's why it's really important if you are trying to engage in some mental stillness to relieve stress. My whole suggestion is to go out and go for a walk or a run or working out, because lots of times our stress is very physical first. And that's why in the yoga tradition, you do those physical practices, and maybe you do pranayama, which I teach. But then there comes a time where, okay, well, when do we start paying attention here? And you can practice mindfulness while you're running. You can practice mindfulness while you're breathing. We'll be doing that in a moment. But it really is just a matter of practicing it often. And give yourself a test. So the next time you go out and get into your car, what's the first thing you typically do other than put on your seatbelt? You maybe tune in your radio station, or you find your favorite podcast. You find something to entertain you while you're driving. But you notice that you can't do that when you're first learning how to drive, right? You're paying so much attention to, like, what do I do? Because it's so mentally difficult at first. But once you get used to driving, then you say, okay, now I can tune into other things. But then you realize you're paying too much attention to maybe what you're listening to, that you fail to pay attention to the road. So ask yourself this: can I maybe spend 10 minutes on the road without listening to anything, tuning my attention to the road? So that can be a discipline in itself, to train your mind not to be so fixated on these external stimulation. And you might notice things on the road that you hadn't noticed before. And that's really what mindfulness is about. So you might even notice, like, oh my gosh, I didn't notice that house is for sale. Or you might notice the clouds in the sky, a different way that the sun is coming in. This is all mindfulness. It's paying attention to those little subtleties that you would typically ignore. So mindfulness is about tuning in to what's going on right now, rather than fixating on all those things that are competing for your attention. And there are many of them. So we get so addicted to these patterns where we are constantly inviting in stimulation. Oh, I got to watch another video. Oh, I have to listen to this. I have to do this. I have to keep up. And then we wonder why we have so much frenetic energy. And then when we need to calm down, when we need to slow down and go to sleep, we can't do it because our minds are still buzzing way up here. So mindfulness, meditation, all these practices are about bringing down that energy, calming the mind, and we tune out all that excess so we can tune in to what's going on within. So it takes a little bit of practice, and you can even practice this while you're in the tub, which I did this morning. And it's just a few minutes a day. So you don't need a formal mindfulness chair. You don't need a formal ceremony to invite mindfulness into your day several times a day. So wherever you are, let's find a comfortable seat. So because this is a teaching in mindfulness, we do invite you to sit for a moment. And it takes a while, just like you can't go take a car from 60 miles an hour to a sudden halt. It takes a while for the mind to slow down. So that's why I gave that talk for a while. Because the mind has to stop spinning and stop all those darting. So sit for a moment. You can close your eyes if you'd like, because I'm not much to look at. And just notice for a moment what your breath feels like. So you're like, what? What's the breath feel like? What? So many times we breathe from our chest. I mean, obviously, that's where our lungs are. But see if you can take a deep breath and follow it down into so see if you can push it so far down that you're pushing out the organs below your ribs. So basically what's happening is the diaphragm is pushing down on the inhale and pushing everything out, and then exhale. So just notice that for a moment. So just notice what the breath is doing and see if you can deepen it. So let's take a deep breath in through the nose. See if you can feel it in through the belly. And then exhale. So if you're listening with headphones, you might not hear what your breath sounds like. But I'll be quiet for a moment. See if you can hear what your breath sounds like. Maybe you can hear that echoing. As the air is coming through the nose, through the throat. And see if it makes a different sound coming out, if it's a different tone. Now let's notice your body. So lots of times we slouch. See if you can puff out your chest and roll your shoulders back so your shoulder blades are behind you. See if you can pinch them behind you. So that's why you see a lot of times people putting their hands on their lap, because it helps open up the chest, and then the elbows are pointing behind you. See if the breath deepens there. So notice your neck. Lots of times we hold a lot of tension in our necks. See if you can, like you did when you were a kid, there was that balance practice. Imagine that book on top of your head and you're trying to keep that book level. And now see if you can extend the neck long. And lots of times we dip our chin forward. See if you can bring the chin back. I'm not saying you need to make a double chin, although my physical therapist had me doing that, because that stretches out the muscles in the back of the neck. Just notice. There isn't anything esoteric here. It's just recognizing those things that occur every day, but we might not notice because there are many things competing for our attention. Now notice your back. See if you can plant your tailbone, your sit bone, basically little bony parts that meet your cushion or your chair. See if you can plant those bones into your seat. And by doing that, notice maybe there's a little engagement in your core as you extend from those bones down there to the top of your head. Notice as you breathe differently as you made these adjustments. Did you lose the deep breath? So it's like driving. We lose the ability to pay attention to these subtle qualities that we easily fall into patterns that might not be beneficial for us. Notice if there's any tension in your legs. Is there any heat or cold? Is your stomach gurgling? What does the pressure feel like in your nose? By being quiet for a few moments, do you notice a tinging in your ears? Is that a word, tinging? So you pay attention to your body when there's not a lot of external distractions. And anytime your mind darts off to something, just say, wait a minute, hold on. What's my nose doing? What's my breath doing? What are my hips doing? What's my posture look like? And let that tune you into this moment. What that does is it just kind of down regulates all those currents that press on us every single day if we let them. When you practice mindfulness, you decide what's most appropriate given the situation. So you're able to better tune in to everything that's happening and make a more appropriate decision because you're paying attention to everything, not for what's competing for your attention. So a mindfulness practice can be a formal practice like this one, or you can just take a couple of minutes a few times a day and say, what is my body doing? How is my neck, my shoulders, my hips, my back, my breath responding to this situation? So maybe it's not necessary for you to react to that situation because oftentimes it comes with a lot of mistakes and a lot of emotions and a lot of reactivity. And instead, you're able to take in everything, the entirety, the context, rather than relying on those patterns that we've become so accustomed to in our lives. So if you've enjoyed this practice, I do have some I do have some meditations on Insight Timer. But whatever you do, see if you can give yourself the gift of a few moments of mindfulness every single day, even if it just means 1 or 2 minutes in the car. Take care.